Chapter 3, Crime in the United States, Offenses, Offenders, and Victims. So, Chapter 3, Learning Objectives. We want to identify the three most frequently used sources of information about crime, list of serious crimes reported in the Uniform Crime Reports. I'll refer to it from this point on as UCR. Compare and contrast the classical and holistic positivist theories of crime causation, described using results from official data, which demographics comprise the majority of crimes arrests in the United States. Recognize the demographic characteristics of those people who are most likely and least likely to become victims of crime. Explain how police officers become victims. Introduction. Crime involves hurtful acts committed by individuals against other individuals or their property. Until recently, crimes have been examined as acts against the state and prosecuted as such. The system is beginning to view criminals, victims, and society all as equally affected by criminal acts. So when you look at it, you talk about property crimes and crimes against individuals, and some of the statutes and laws have been changed, and they've gotten more severe depending upon what state you're in for these certain types of crimes. But the system does view everybody as having a role in the criminal justice system now, and we'll talk a little bit more about the criminals, victims, and et cetera. So when we come to getting information and sources of information about crime, one of the first places that we go for the U.S. is the FBI's Uniform Crime Reports. And this was started years ago, and it was about reporting violent crimes, not misdemeanors, but violent crimes. And then you had an evolution of that, came into the National Incident-Based Reporting, which is more comprehensive and broke down to include violent crimes, but also misdemeanors. And you have the Bureau of Statistics and National Crime Victimization Survey. And this is also set up by the government where they compile this information pertaining to victims as well. Self-reports, this is where people are basically interviewed and they're talked to about crimes that they've committed. Well, what they found in these self-reports and stuff is self-report surveys. If you had a guy who's committed 5 crimes and got caught for them, when you talk to him with self-reporting, what he would do is tell you he actually did 25. So he got away with 20 of them. He only got caught for 5. So self-report surveys a lot of times allowed you to catch or allowed people to tell you things that they done that nobody knew. Basically what you call unreported crime. The media has a tendency to focus primarily on bad crimes or whatever else, and the most serious. There's a saying they used to have: if it bleeds, it reads. So they would go after the most heinous stories and put them out there, but they wouldn't be comprehensive in covering all different types of crimes and stories. So discussion question, we'll skip that for here for purposes. Violent and property crimes. So when you looked at now, we're looking at information from 2014. So when you see this, a violent crime occurred every 26 seconds. Look for what it says for the violent crimes up under there. Property crimes, it occurred every 3.8 seconds. And look what type we're talking about here. So when we talk about violent crimes, we're talking about rape, robbery, murder, arson, those types. Crimes against property, you're talking about basically when people damaging stuff or taking things along those lines. And property crimes usually do not involve violence. For instance, if he's a burglar, what they do is he'll burglarize houses that are vacant. If he goes to try to go into a house and somebody's there, he'll turn around and run. That's the difference between somebody who actually robs. Robbery is a violent crime, and it's going to be up there because they know that somebody's in the house and they're willing to come in and try to do it anyway, which tells you they're probably inclined to say, if I have to hurt or kill to get what I want, then I'll do it. Crimes excluded from the UCR, misdemeanors or felonies. And when you look at that, it was the misdemeanors that was excluded from that. You look at that now, remember I told you there's actually been another report, now it's more comprehensive. So when we look at the crimes categories, we see the murder, rape, robbery, assault, burglary, larceny, theft, arson, and see white collar crimes over here. These are white collar, cyber, organized, hate, ritualistic. So you see all these different categories that crimes can fall into. Okay, that's a discussion question we'll talk about later. Major theories of criminality and causes of. So when we look at the classical theory and what we think in terms of traditional, this is really going to be focused on the ability of suitability targets like homes, stores containing easily sold goods, the absence of watchful guardians, homeowners, neighbors, friends, the presence of motivated offenders, unemployed individuals, drug abusers. So when we look at the classic theory, that's kind of what we see. When we look at this positivist theory, this is where we're taking consideration as people, biological makeup. Basically, there's things about them that makes them commit some type of crime. And you see right here the influence of biology. This is where people believe that some people, they are born bad, or there's things about their genetic makeup and stuff that makes them prone to crime. And then you have the influence of the environment. This is where people grow up. You're influenced by people that you're around, groups and gangs, and within your environment. Here's a combination. Can you have some people who have a combination where they're actually born biologically predisposed to be able to commit some crimes, but then they get in an environment where they're actually exposed to it, and you actually can have both. And I've actually seen this before personally, where I felt like I've seen both with some suspects, some criminals in the past. Career criminals or recidivists. So when you look at career criminals or recidivists, these are people who are actually habitual. A lot of times you hear it referred to as habitual offenders. These people will actually have multiple felony convictions, multiple crimes of violence. And recidivists is actually play on recidivism. This is where people keep going back in like the revolving door. They come back in and out of prison. Juvenile offenders, you'll see this a lot of times. Juvenile offenders, it can be you can see situations where they are. Some of them could be predisposed to doing it, but a lot of times it's going to be with the certain types of elements that they're involved in, the environments, things along those lines. And status offenders is going to be the juveniles when they're going to look at the certain types of crimes that they commit, the different type of categories that we're in. A lot of times when you see status offenders, they're going to be associated with violent crimes. You have serious and violent juveniles, and really about when they look at to see how many of them are serious and violent juveniles, you're looking at about 8% of your offenders that will fall in that category. So you got types of victims, direct and primary. This is where somebody is actually themselves is the victim or the primary target or whatever. You have indirect and secondary. This could be the victim's families, neighbors or friends. Victimization factors and stuff. When they look at victimization factors, a lot of times, look at the household. What type of household, this instability in the household, where you have it, where it's happening inside of the house, whether it be alcoholism, unemployment, drug use, some things along those lines. And so subsequently, you have discord in the house, and then you start having domestic issues. So you have individual risk. A lot of things that takes into consideration is their age, their gender, and their race. How old are they when they're exposed to stuff? The gender. If you think about it, how many times have you ever heard that 5 women went out and robbed a bank? So that's not usually common for women to do those types of crimes. So when you have gender, there'll be certain types of crimes that be associated with certain types with the gender, and things that will not be. Race, a lot of times it depends on, people's culture, where they're from. And, those things can factor into it. The fear and effects of victimization is actually is when, you may not have been a victim, but you live in an area where there has been other victims that you know. Now you live psychologically in a prison because you're afraid because of other people being victimized. The second wound, further victimization by the criminal justice system. So when we talk about this is where a victim has to get involved with the criminal justice system. Now they got to go get an attorney. Now they got to go back and forth to court. Now they have to testify, and they get on there to testify, and the defense goes after the character and all these other things. Realistically, this is where people feel like they've been victimized. So you have what you see now in a lot of federal, state, local systems stuff. They have support groups to help to assist victims because of them feeling like they get victimized when they go into it. The movement towards crime victims' rights, a brief historical overview. Programs and services for crime victims, a parallel justice system for victims. So when you look at these different things right here, the movement towards crime victims, once upon a time, if you looked at all the crime, the laws and statutes and stuff, it never said anything about victim. Now it was always the criminal, the offender, or whatever else. Now you have people who are actually, organizations and states and governments have put things on the books to help victims, to protect victims, to protect them against witness tampering, all these other things. You have different services and stuff for crime victims and stuff, rape counselors and counselors they can go to because they've been brutally beaten, things along those lines. And the parallel justice system for these victims is kind of like setting up a parallel system that they can go through while they're going through this other stuff that actually supports them and helps them deal with the actual regular criminal justice system. And the police role, the role that the police play, is we all know what they do. They protect and they serve. But they can also be more understanding when they're dealing with victims too. So Leaky Net, if you look at it, this is something that a lot of people are unaware of and don't think about a lot. But I'm going to tell you, if 10 robberies have been committed in a neighborhood, there's probably been double that. 10 of them probably wasn't reported. Crimes not reported by victims to authorities. If you see at the top, you see how big that is. Look down at the bottom. See criminals who repay their victims. Criminals that don't. So now that with these laws to protect to protect victims, a lot of times criminals have to pay restitution, and you see a lot of crimes don't get reported. But you also see that only a few criminals actually repay the victims. Most of them do not. So when we look at police officers as victims, police officers can be assaulted or killed. Most often they are secondary victims. So a police officer can respond to a scene where a husband and wife are fighting and one pulls out a gun and the police officer get accidentally shot. Or he could actually be killed, he or she could be killed intentionally. So, they can be victims. And when you talk about secondary victims, that's what it would be. They're somewhere and they weren't the target and nobody was trying to kill them, but they get killed by virtue of just being out there. So it makes it very different, a big difference. Discussion skip. That's the end of chapter 3.